If you make this one shift on your sales calls, the ease of which you'll be able to close prospects at the end without objections is going to skyrocket. After taking over 7,000 sales calls myself, I noticed a pattern that led to prospects being very hard to close and a pattern that led to prospects being very easy to close on a sales call. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Christian Polk. The whole purpose of this YouTube channel is to give you the information you need to be an elite closer who has a close rate of 60 to 90% versus being average, closing 30% of the people you talk to. Now, the reason why this topic is front of mind for me is from a conversation I had with one of my students just a few days back. When he first came to me, he was making $15,000 per month. For most people would be fantastic, but he knew there was another level to it. And just this past month, he made over $47,000 in straight commissions, selling the exact same thing, selling real estate agents, sales training. If you don't know anything about real estate agents, they tend to be very type A. And the big shift that he was able to make, and we talked about, is shifting his focus from just talking about people's pains, their goals, their aspirations, and actually selling to people's identity. So let's dive into it. Okay, so what does it mean to sell to a prospect's identity? So let's break it down. In the sales conversation, you got two people. You got the prospect here and you have the closer. Now, the prospect has a problem. They're wearing a mask. They are sad on the inside. And your job as a closer is to take your hammer, okay, and uncover what's really going on and get this person to change for the better, okay? That's part pretty obvious. What most closers are taught is to focus on prospects' thoughts, beliefs, actions, and outcomes. And I would say 95% of closers only focus on actions and outcomes. They don't really even focus on beliefs or thoughts, okay? So typically throughout the entire conversation, what they're doing is just hammering actions and outcomes. What are you doing now, and what outcomes is that getting you, okay? What do you need to do, and what outcomes does that actually get you, okay? And in the objection handling part, all they're doing is, what do you need to do to get outcome over and over and over again? While this can work, this will only get you to a certain level of closing. Why? Because you're having a very surface level sales conversation. In order to get to the point where you're not stuck at 30% of the people you're talking to actually closing, you have a close rate of 60 to 90%, is you have to have a more fundamental conversation. You need to take this hammer, become a Chad closer, right? And actually start closing to people's identity. Now, what an identity is, and what I mean by selling to their identity, is every single person that you're talking to has a picture in their mind of the person who they are now and the person who they want to be. And why is that more of a fundamental conversation? In order to understand that, you have to understand how the brain works. So if we take a look here, this is going to be a bit of a simplification, but there are three parts to the brain. We got the primate, mammalian, and reptile part. The further down you go, the more persuasive that you are going to be. Now, the primate side is dealing more with like thoughts, okay? Most people logically know they need to do certain things, but they don't. Most people know they should go to the gym, eat right, do all these different things, but there's still so many people who are overweight. Why is that? Because the other parts of their brain are much more powerful. Their emotions, their mammalian part of the brain is much more powerful, and their instincts, their reptilian part of the brain is much more powerful. Now, you can get to some emotion when you are talking about actions and outcomes. Typically, it's very surface level emotions, but you're going to have a hard time actually getting to instincts. When we're talking about the reptilian part of the brain, it's going to be the most persuasive part of the brain because nobody has to persuade you to jump when you're scared, okay? It's a reaction. It's an instinct. And if you try to talk to an alligator, right, and it bit you, would it be telling you its thought process, or would it tell you it bit you because that's what alligators do? It's its identity. That's what it does. So for you to be able to have this conversation where you're able to tap into people's identity, it's going to be much deeper and closer to the brain stem. So it's going to be much more persuasive. Because if you're able to get to somebody's identity and actually help them shift that, their thoughts, their beliefs, and their actions all align, and they will get the outcomes that they want. Okay. So let me explain a little bit deeper. And in order to do this, you have to be a leader, right? Like Alexander the Great here, little cartoon. Okay. At least made me laugh. So, what you need to do is you need to understand, yes, you need to understand like the actions, the outcomes that they're getting, but on a deeper level, you need to understand the identity of who they are now and be able to create a gap of the identity of who they actually need to be. It's that gap right there that will talk much deeper and you'll have a much more fundamental conversation to get people to take action. Okay. So, let's have a few examples. I know for me personally, when I've made any big changes in my life, I had to change the person who I was in order to get the outcome. For example, in order to become an elite closer, I had to adopt the identity of an elite closer in order to do so. Now, being a coach who helps other people become elite closers, I have to adopt the identity of being a coach. And then my thoughts, my beliefs, my actions, and my outcomes will all fall into a line of the identity of who I am. Okay. So that's just, again, for me personally, let's talk about more in sales conversations. For example, let's say you are selling a weight loss offer. You talk to them and the actions and outcomes that they're getting right now, they're not eating right. So the outcomes they're getting, they're overweight. This is causing a lot of problems. Okay. What do they actually want to do? They want to lose weight. But you need to take it that layer deeper and talk about the identity of who they are and who they want to become by losing that weight. Let's say, for example, through your questions, through the sales conversation, you understand the reason they truly want to lose weight is because they want to be a good example for their son. Okay. They're overweight. They don't want their son to be overweight. Now, you just found out an identity of who they want to be. They want to be a good example for their son. They want to be a good father. So you got to understand, okay, right now they're not living up to that. So if you're able to find the gap of them not being a good father now versus them being a good father once they have this outcome, once they make this identity shift, it's going to be very difficult for them to give you objections at the end of the call because they're not deciding whether or not to do a weight loss program. They're deciding whether or not are they going to be a good role model, a good dad for their son. Okay. Let's make another example. Let's say you're selling a biz op offer. You're helping people make more money online, start their own business because they're trapped in a 9 to 5. Okay. Now, the outcomes that they want to be making more money, but what's the identity of the person who they want to be? Typically, you'll be talking to people and you'll find out like there's something deep seated. There's something that they want to live up to. I know for me personally, what caused me to make money online, become a closer, do all these things, because I was deathly scared of being average. There is an identity that I was running away from. And there is an identity of me being somebody who could have everything they want, like not have restrictions, somebody who is self-sufficient. So for me, what really caused me to go all in on sales and making money online was the identity of being average, running away from that and really running towards the identity of being someone who's free and can do whatever they want. And if you find that in your prospects, I guarantee you it's going to be so much easier to close at the end of the conversation. And very rarely will you even run into objections. If you do, super piece of cake to run into. Okay. So now you're probably wondering, okay, I get the concept, sell to people's identity. How do you do it? Well, glad you asked. Typically, how you'll do it is you sprinkle it in throughout your conversation. And an easy way to do it is you bridge into it. So when you're in discovery, there's really two big ways we can bridge into it. We can bridge into it in discovery and we can bridge into it in objection handling. Now in discovery, what you're going to do is, again, you'll have the sales calls normally. You'll understand exactly what their pain points are, what are they looking to, get, all those different things that you'd normally do. But then what you want to do, like after you have rapport, and again, you're leading the conversation, is you're going to take it that step deeper. Like I said, have that much more fundamental conversation. An easy way to bridge into it. And again, I've done this thousands of times, I've yet to get any pushback. Okay. So you do it something like this. You can have the best diet plan in the world, but if you don't have the right mentality, what type of results are you going to get? They're going to say, oh, you don't get good results. Yeah, exactly. So getting to XYZ outcome is, yes, skills. You need to know what to do, but more importantly, it's about being a better person. Would you agree? Okay. Let's say you're selling a biz op, teaching people how to invest in real estate. Okay. Can I make a suggestion? Yes, of course. Okay. And the reason why I asked all that is because you can have the best diet plan in the world, but if you don't have the right mentality to actually use it, like what type of results are you going to get? Oh, you're not going to get any results. Exactly. So you getting to 10,000 per month wholesaling, yes, it comes down to having the right skills, but more importantly, it's about being a better person. Like, would you agree? Oh, yeah, of course. And then from there, what you do is you have that conversation to find out, again, who the identity they are right now versus the identity of who they really need to be, creating that gap and creating that urgency if they stay the identity that they are for the rest of their life and really getting to the consequences of that. That's what's really going to create that urgency. And then what you can do, let's say, for example, it's rare, but you can get objections. You want to bridge out of talking about the program as quick as possible. Like once you get buy-in on the program, the money's tied off. Then from there, let's say they're still a bit hesitant. You want to move it away from talking about the program. You need to move it into talking about the person who they need to be. Okay. You do it just like this. Like I can understand taking that leap is hard, but right now we're not deciding, whether we're going to do the program or not do the program. We're deciding on what type of business owner we're going to be. For example, like say you're helping somebody like scale their business or just insert whatever identity for what you sell. So hopefully this has been helpful. Like and subscribe if you found this useful. Start implementing this on your calls. And if you want more training on how to go deeper on the discovery, check out the video on the screen.